Okay, so let's get into some of the books that I plan on reading in 2025. So, first of all, I don't necessarily think that I'm going to finish all of these books in 2025. Where should I start? So I'm interested in European history. I'm interested in pre-colonization, colonization. I'm interested in religion. I'm interested in finance, economics, uh labor law, politics, religion, sex, war and counter war. So those are like different areas that I like to study, and I'm gonna start with this one. So this is called The Crusades, and is written by Thomas Asbridge, and he's from the University of London, and he lives in England. The Crusades are very pivotal because a lot of people don't really understand how certain problems that exist are actually old problems, right? So I bought this book to understand more of how uh, the different wars that were fought over religion in Europe and the Middle East. And so I haven't started this book. As I said, this is the pile that I plan to jump into. It's November, so who knows what I would jump into in December. So this is one of the books that I plan on reading. Oh, and let me see something. This book is about 650 pages. So for a book like this, my strategy would be to um probably do about a chapter or 20, 25, 30 pages a day. So like if I could do 30 pages a day, then in 2 months I could finish this book. And what usually happens is if the book is good, while you're reading it, you're going to get gain greater interest, and then you'll want to keep going into the book. But some books are lame. I'm gonna just be real with you. Some books, I think, especially I like nonfiction. So a lot of books tend to just get so fact heavy, like fact, without providing enough context. And so, but that's how it would probably take me 2 to 3 months to finish a book like this. And so I wouldn't, of course, sit down and read it at one time, but over the course of the year, I would get through that book. So this is the story of the Moors in Spain by Stanley Lane Poole, and I'm actually currently reading this book. And so and I ordered this online, and this comes from the African American bookstore in West Palm Beach, Florida, that is actually no longer in existence. And this is the reason why I buy books, because with the digital age and the things that's going on in the digital world, a lot of books are going to be going out of print. A lot of people are not going to be buying books anymore, and as a result, we're going to be in a situation where you know uh, everything is going to go digital. And the problem with that is, one day perhaps a lot of these books will be considered rare, right? So that book talks about the Moors in Spain and how they were eventually kicked out of Spain during the Reconquista or after the Reconquista. It's a very interesting read, um, written by a scholar that went to different colleges in Europe, and it was written in originally in the 1880s, and it's a very interesting read. I haven't finished it yet because I'm still currently reading it, and I'm reading it simultaneously with another book dealing with the Jews, the Sephardic Jews of Spain, and Sepharad, which is another name for Spain, and it's dealing with the same time period. So it's really interesting. What is this book? Okay, this is Ty Hesi Coates, Between the World and Me. Now he is it didn't come with a case, but he is a scholar that you might see or a writer that you might see on MSNBC or something like that. He has a lot of different books. I haven't read any of his books. Is only a few African people from the continent that I've actually read. Chino Achebe, a few others that I've actually read. Um, but he is going to be the first African writer in modern times that I'm going to get into his work because I have more than one book by him. And so this one is called Between the World and Me. So I'm going to check that one out. This is a play. Okay, I'm really into Europe right now. So this is The Crucible. Okay, and this is about the Salem witch trials. I've been studying uh the Reformation, people like John Wycliffe, Martin Luther, Joan of Arc, people that were, you know, at the stake, and what happened to them. And so this is a play about that. And I've actually been so tempted to start this book actually, um, because it's not really a long read, it's a play, but I wanted to digest and finish the books that I've already had. And I've made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to buy any more books until I finish these books. Which honestly, when you start reading a lot of books or whatever, you realize that one book will force you to start buying another book because one story might give you one perspective, and then it would have, like in these other books, they would have references and different authors that they reference. And so you would go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and say, okay, well, let me get into that one. So this is a crucible. A lot of people don't know that what was going on with people being at the stake is that in Europe, if you did not uh practice the Catholic faith, they were using that as a form to get people in line. And there was a time when the Pope and the Catholic Church had a lot more power. So that's what that's about. I have a lot of books, a few books I would say, on Mexico and Latin America, just because in mainstream uh the educational system in the United States, we don't really learn about Latin American history, indigenous history, the history of our entire continent. We just kind of learn a lot about what happened in England. We don't even learn about the Spaniards that was here. It's a very fragmented educational system that we have in the United States. So that's why I try to read a lot more about the history of Latin America as well as other continents. I think that information is neutral, knowledge is neutral, and I believe that everybody should learn about one another. And I think that that would create uh, more opportunities for us to develop respect for one another. So I haven't read this book yet. This is written by a former U.S. soldier who she was in the Air Force. I don't know her rank and stuff like that, but um, she wrote this book, Sylvia Longmire, The Cartel. She's been on the news as well. Is has a plethora of different authors from who wrote on a similar topic. And as a person who drove trucks across the U.S. Mexican border, Laredo, El Paso, I-10, um, I-5, and stuff like that. These are the type of books that are really interesting to me because as a trucker, you see a lot, you know, and you realize that things are not as secure as what people think it is. Like that's a whole nother topic, but this is a very large country. It's very difficult to police the entire, U.S. Mexican border. And then when you realize that, the United States um, allegedly wants to get some of this trafficking into the country for as the narcos is very interesting. So I've read one book on the topic. I'm actually hoping that this book is better than the last book. The last book, Mexico's of Narco Violence in a Failed State by George Grayson, was a good book, but since Netflix and Hulu has made so many different narco series, when you start to read some of these books that clearly they borrowed this information from, it's almost like you already know what's going to happen next. So I'm interested to get through that one. So let me get to this one. So this one is by Luis J. Rodriguez. This is his account of coming of age, which is vivid, raw, fierce, fearless. And I bought this book because it was recommended to me, and I wanted to learn more about um Hispanic gang culture and things of that nature and Chicanos. And I seen one of his interviews online. I was like, okay, let me purchase that book. So it's called Always Running. He has some other books. I've been tempted to start this book too. But like I said, I want to finish the books that I'm already went uh reading. This book is only about 260 pages. I could i could probably finish this book in a week or so, but I wanted to wait to finish. I got 3 books that I'm finishing right now, and I was like, I don't want to start any new books, man. So okay, so this is called A Fire in Canebrake, and it's the last mass lynching in America, and it talks about the things that um the things that occurred in one of the darker parts of American history. I read one book, a few books on lynchings. One was called the Dark Side of the Street, and it was talking about rest in peace, and a woman named Rancy Taylor who was captured and violated, and she was kept alive, but it was really vivid. This book, of Fire and Crane Break, documents the last lynching in the United States, and it has so many good reviews from all of the top people like James Allen, author of Without Sanctuary, John Egerton, author of Speak Now Against the Day, um David Isla, a public radio producer and author of Flophouse, Life on the Broadway. And so I've been tempted to start this book as well. Um, it's just one of those reality reads. And as a person, like I said, I've been on back roads. I've been in places in the United States average American can't tell me nothing about. Listen, I've been everywhere. I've been to Utah, to Texas, to places in Texas Texans don't even know about. I've used to drive from El Paso to Big Spring, all the way down to that. That's like a 12-hour drive from El Paso to Dallas. Used to drive from El Paso to Houston, all down to Laredo. I've been, Las Cruces, um, New Mexico, uh, Santa Fe to Albuquerque. I've been through Arizona and every which way there is to go. Nevada, the Dakotas. I've been everywhere, man. So books like that, I always think about, like, man, what if I have a flat tire out here? What's going to happen to me? So going back to Houston, I mean not Houston, the Reformation and things like that. This book is called The Reformation. Going back to Europe. So this book is about the European history. Is written by Darmaid McCulloch. Who is this book for? Excuse me. This book of the Fire and Crane Cranbreak is written by Laura Wexler. Okay, and so um she will start writing at the University of Georgia and John Hopkins University, and she lives in Baltimore. So I'm definitely interested in reading that one. The Reformation. I was reading a Yale's professor book on the history of modern Europe, and the Crusades, the Reformation, and the Inquisition are things that the average American know nothing about. We're not taught these things. We're just in the dark. So those are topics that I want to know, because it's one thing to practice a religion, but not if not understanding. If you don't understand those topics, the Reformation, the Inquisition, the Reconquista, the Crusades, then we won't really have a good understanding of why the Salem witch trials happen, why these lynchings occur, why were people burned at the stake or um, executed on trees. Then this gets into my next book, The Spanish Inquisition. This book is coming from Yale University, Henry Rahman. I'm definitely interested in starting this one. Um, the Spanish Inquisition, infamous for the things that they did, capital punishment, uh, definitely interested in that. Now I'm about to go to the other side. I mean, it's one thing to learn about the Christian influence, but if we don't learn about like the Ottoman centuries, the rise and fall of the Turkish Empire, Constantinople, Istanbul, if we don't learn about Islam and the role that Islam played in on the positive side and negative sides and the things that took place, then we'll forever be in the dark. And this one is written by Laura Krenos, and I cannot wait. It has really high remarks as well. This is a book, like I said, that'll probably take me about 2 months, 3 months to study, take notes, and read in. And so between the Crusades and that one, that's enough, right? I could pick two of those books and that'll be enough. So this one is called The Brief History of the Middle East, a brief history of the last 2,000 years. And I am going to read this book because I definitely want to know more about the Middle East. I want to know why things occurred the way they occur. All right. Now getting back to American politics. This one is a book that I first started listening on Audible, and it was so good that I wanted to buy the book. And it's written by William A. Doherty Jr. and A. Kristen Mullen. William A. Doherty Jr. also being from Duke University. Um says from here to equality, reparations for Black Americans in the 21st century. This is the second edition. I think that this might be the most important book of the 21st century. Um, honestly, is that this is a must read. Out of all the books in my collection, damn. But out of all the books in my collection, if I had to just if it was a fire and I could only grab 3 books, I think I might go for this one. And that's saying something because one of my favorite authors is on that shelf. And that's why I said 3. But I would have to grab this one. Okay. I have several books. These last 2 books is 2 books apiece from different authors, but I bought more than one book of their collection. Sometimes you want to get more than one book from the same author because you realize like, okay, they have a good writing style, good opinions, things like that. So this is another book that I want to read. It's from Amos N. Wilson, and his Issues of Manhood in Black and White, an incisive look into masculinity and the societal definition of African man. And I definitely want to read this book. I believe it's a collection of essays. But he has another book called The Blueprint for Black Power. That book is on my shelf as well. That's a book that I would like to read also, but it's such a lengthy read. I think it would probably take me 2 years to get through that one, at least a year. And then this one, the developmental psychology of the black child. This is a book that I used to see like YouTube clips made of, and I was thinking like, man, you know what? I'm gonna buy that book, and I bought both of these books. They're like brand new paperbacks. I haven't started them yet. There's also in my 2025 goal to complete. And then I have Dr. Claude Anderson's Black Labor, White Wealth. And I have one of his books that I did a review on earlier, Powernomics, that I read. So I have not read this one. I started to study this one, a black history reader, and I really love the way that this book is written. Um It's very heavy. Dr. Claude is a very heavy author. He puts things in a way that is no way that you could misconstrue what he's trying to say. Very powerful. So Black Labor, White Wealth, and a Black History Reader, 101 questions you never thought to ask. And that's what I like about this book, because there's so many questions that most people haven't thought about asking, and he answers them, and he gives great information on a great format. And he forces, especially if you are on the continent of America, or you're thinking about coming here, or you're living here, this is the type of book that I have you thinking, interesting. So that's my collection. I believe that's about 15 books. So I have my work cut out for me for 2025. But I'm more than confident that I'll get it done. And if it's one or two books that I don't finish, you know, I could just save it for another year, But those are my goals. Those are the things that I have on my hit list to complete. And I just know that once I complete them, my entire perspective would just be like, so peace.